بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. My brother and sister, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I begin with praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for providing us the opportunity to be here today. And I begin by sending peace and salutation upon the final messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. However, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that whomsoever do not thank the people, they do not thank Allah. So my gratitude upon Allah will not be completed unless I thank all of you for being here today. And I thank the Northampton Islamic Society for holding this very important and yet neglected event. I was asked to speak about Islam and disability and relate that topic into my own experiences. Before I start, I just want to let you know a bit of my story. I came from Indonesia. I was born with disabilities, both in my hands and in my speech. So I was born, so when my mother delivered me, she had to go certain, it's called asphyxia neonatal. Something has to do with her lungs. So that, when I was born, I didn't cry. And I had to go through several operations, and after 21 days, then I started to cry. And because of those operations, it impacted my hand and my speech. So I cannot use my hand to do certain things, especially that of activities that includes soft motoric movement, like writing or eating or picking up small items. That would be difficult for me. And throughout my life, I have faced a lot of challenges because of my disabilities, from being rejected from school and so on. So, for example, my parents wanted me to study at Al-Azhar Islamic education, which is one of the most prestigious Islamic education in my country. However, I wasn't get accepted in the beginning, so we had to go through several procedures. We had to go to municipality, we had to go to the governor's office to push them so that I can study alongside with my non-disabled friends. And during those times, there were no organization in our country dealing with people with special needs. So all my friends started their school in June. Well, I started my school in December because I had to go through 12 different tests in order to prove that I was capable to study alongside my non-disabled friend. And Alhamdulillah, with the mercy of Allah, I was able to get into that school. And thanks to my parents for their struggle, because during that time I didn't know how to defend my rights. And so Alhamdulillah, I received my early Islamic education in that school for 9 years. So after finishing grade 9, I had the opportunity to move to Qatar to continue my high school. In Qatar, the same thing happened. Qatar is a small country where you can explore the whole country in one day. So we visited every single school in Qatar, and there is only one school who is ready to accept me. The problem is that I have a problem with my hand, and I cannot use my hand to write. So for them, it's a big deal because in school we had to write a lot. So for them, it's a big thing. So there is only one school who can ask me, and alhamdulillah, I was able to study at that school. And then when I finished my high school in 2010, I received scholarship to continue my studies at Qatar University, where I studied international relations, focusing on Middle East politics, and I graduated in 3 years last year, and then now I'm here doing my master at the University of Manchester. And the thing that I want to talk about today is that as a disabled, we face a lot of challenges, and a lot of people with disabilities, they find inspiration here or there. They find inspiration by reading books about people with disabilities or about anything. But unfortunately, a lot of those books and a lot of those people who speak about disability awareness, they're not Muslim. You know, but in my case, my parents have implanted me Islam as my inspiration. And that's what I want to share with you today, my inspiration, and that is Islam. What Islam has to offer for the people with disability. Let's start with the term. The term disabilities, or in Arabic we call it mu'awwaqun, comes from European American books. It doesn't come from Islam. It did not come from Islam. So if you look at the recent work on Islam, they will start using the word mu'awwaqun because they adopted the word from American or European scholars. But in Islam, if you look at the earliest work in Islam, they usually use the word like Ahlul Bala, the people with affliction, or Durul Istiyajat al-Khasas, the people with special needs. They do not use the word disabled. But recently, when the Europeans started to dominate the world, they began to adopt the same word. And when it comes to textual work on disability, there were no books written specifically on the people with disabilities until the 11th century. It was written by Imam al-Ghazali, and it was a chapter on ahkam related to blindness, on the ruling related to blindness. And however, we have to understand that in majority of fiqh books or jurisprudence books, there will always a section for the people with exemption. So for example, if we look at the books on prayer, on salah, we will find a section for those who are not able to stand, for example, or were not able to sit. How do they perform their prayers? And when it comes to wudu, for example, ablution, there will always a section that will happen if somebody their skin cannot be touched by water, and so on and so forth. So textually, the people with disability are not ignored in Islam. And then we move on how Islam views disabilities. The first thing that we have to understand is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us in two different forms, external and internal. External is our bodies. Internal is our soul. We may have differences in our bodies. We may have disabilities. Some people do not have disabilities. Some people are with dark skin, some people with light skin. But our soul are equal. We are created equal by Allah. There is no such a thing called disabled soul. There is no such a thing called black soul. There is not all of this, Allah wants to teach us to respect one another, to love one another. And that is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only judges us through our taqwa, through what's inside, not our physical body. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلقها منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us from a single soul, and from that He created us, from that He created pairs, and from that He created many men and women, and the best among you are those who are taqwa. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam actually says that do not look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not look at the people physically, but through their hearts. And at the end of the day, your body will be decayed. When you die, you're going to be buried. Your body is going to be decayed in the grave. What matters is our soul. What goes to Allah is our soul. And therefore, we have to understand that the iman or the faith of disabled people are not less than those who are able. This is a Jahiliyyah thinking, when we think that people with disability have, less faith or anything. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَإِنَّهَا أَلَا تَعْمَلْ أَبْصَارُ وَلَكِنْ تَعْمَلْ قُلُوبُ الَّتِي فِي الصُّدُورِ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that blindness is not in the eye, but in the heart. But the beauty of the Quran is that the Quran can be looked at from different aspects, from different angles. Allah talks in this ayah specifically about the people with blindness. But we have to look, we can look this ayah from a broader perspective. That disabilities is not in your body. Disabilities, Allah telling us that the real disabilities is in our heart. And it is important to understand that disability is not a punishment. Again, this is a backward thinking. This is a Jahiliyyah, pre-Islamic thinking. Disability is a test, and as everyone else, disabled or non-disabled, we all encounter tests. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do you think that you say that, I'm mu'min, I believe, and then you're not tested? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that everyone will be tested. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam actually said that when Allah wants a good for His servant, Allah will test these people. So, and it is important to understand that Allah is Al-Wadud, Allah is the loving one. So whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us, Allah created us with love. Even if you have disabilities, even if your children have disability, Allah loves, Allah created them with love. And disability can be turned into blessing. And this is what my father always told me since I was a kid. That, by having disability, we can turn it into blessing. How? Number one, by having patience, we will get the reward from it. Inna Allaha ma'as-sabirin. Allah with those who are patient. And for example, the Prophet ﷺ said about those with blindness, Man faqada habibatayn summa sabaru falahul jannah. Whosoever Allah has decreed blindness on him and he is patient, he will enter paradise. So this is a reward for patience. And then expiation of sins. Rasul said that there is not even a prick of a thorn except that his sins are forgiven. There is no calamity before upon Muslim and Muslimat unless their sins are forgiven. Note that for every disability you have, Allah forgives your sin for that. Subhanallah. And then Uh, the second thing is that when it comes to expiation of sins, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that those who are punished in this world, they would not be punished in the hereafter. So, a lot of my friends who are blind and stuff, when I ask them, are you happy with your condition? Wallahi, if they understand Islam properly, they will say, yes, I'm happy. I'm going to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without having a responsible with my eyes. You know, subhanallah. And therefore, wallahi, if you have challenges, if you have disability, we have to be patient. And inshallah, we will meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without any sin. And another thing is the word of shukr. We have to be thankful for whatever we have, right? Allah says, وَلَئِنْ شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. For those who thank Allah, Allah will give them more. And subhanAllah, the way we thank Allah is by looking down, by looking at those who have less. For example, I have disabilities, but alhamdulillah, my disability is only in my hand. What happened is Allah's give me disabilities in my eyes, my ears, and everything. SubhanAllah. And if we do this, sometimes we will feel, one of my friends tells me that he's blind. And then he tells me that, wallahi, if I look at other people who have a worse condition, I feel that I'm not disabled. SubhanAllah. And what we have to do is do more with less, rather than people who have more and do less. And then the last thing I want to say is that Allah is the most wisdom. Allah is Al-Hakim. And whatever Allah created is the best for us. And what Allah also says in the Quran, what we may think is good are actually bad for us, and other way around. So, and Allah also says, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not burden someone beyond their capability. So with every disabilities we have, Allah has given us more abilities to overcome these disabilities. And then, you know, throughout my studies, I faced a lot of difficulties in my school. I was a focal point for bullying. I was afraid of going to school because I don't have any friends. People will laugh at me, and the worst of them is that my teachers. You know, I had a teacher. It was in Islamic education. I want to be a teacher. I love to talk. I love to tell people stories and stuff. So one time I was asked by my teacher that, what do you want to be? I said, I want to be a teacher. And my teacher told me that you won't be able to be a teacher. How can you be a teacher when you cannot even write on a board? SubhanAllah. But alhamdulillah, I have parents who always support me. So whenever I go home, whenever I open my door house, there will be always people, there will always be two persons, my father and my mother, who will tell me, no, you can't. Allah says you can. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. And this is my message for those who have children with disabilities. I believe that I learned a lot from my parents to the more that as a people with disability, they will face sometimes challenges. And the worst of challenges is when people tell you that you cannot do this, you cannot do that. Be those parents who believe in Allah and tell your children that Allah has made them, has given them more abilities to overcome their disabilities. And then I want to talk about Islam and their accommodation to the people with disabilities. First, Islam accommodates people with disabilities really well. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no blame upon the weak for those who cannot do things. No blame upon the poor for this you cannot give. And the Prophet ﷺ, for example, says that if you cannot pray stand and then sit, if you cannot pray sit, while sitting down, then you lay down. This is one of the signs that Islam accommodates those people with disabilities. But unfortunately, it's lacked in our societies, you know. For example, you have to start, there were some brothers in Malaysia and in the UAE who started a campaign to have a khutbah in Jum'ah, in sign language. We are lack of this. We forget the fact that there are people who need this. And in the UK, I think the only place that had this was in Greenland Masjid in Birmingham. And then Islam actually teaches us non-discrimination. Many people with disability are discriminated from schools, from jobs. I was applying for a job recently, and my friend sent me an email, and it's a research project. I do research a lot, so I feel like I was capable of doing it. So I sent him an email telling that I'm interested in the job without telling my disabilities. So they agree, alhamdulillah. But, I called my father that, I got a job and they want me to meet. It's in the UK. They want me to meet. And my father told me, do not surprise them in the first meeting. Tell them that you had disabilities. So I sent them another email detailing my disabilities, but at the same time, I told them that it won't have any impact on my work. Unfortunately, they sent another email and said that somebody else has taken the job. So, subhanAllah. But in Islam, we don't have any of this discrimination. For example, one of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, Abdullah bin Maktoum, he was blind. But the Prophet ﷺ appointed him as a mu'adhin, as a caller of adhan. And not only that, when the Prophet ﷺ had to go out for an expedition, he appointed Abdullah bin Maktoum as the leader of Medina, twice. SubhanAllah, this is one of the signs that the Prophet ﷺ wants to teach us, that do not discriminate people, And Islam actually teaches equality. Despite the fact that we have disability, people with disabilities are still required to perform religious duties, prayer, fasting, in the way that they can, in the best way that they can.